Welcome to Real Estate Soup with Mike Osterman.
So we got a story out of Oklahoma. Tenants on the wrong side of policy. 5 things to know about Oklahoma evictions by Heather Warlick from the Oklahoma Watch. So on average, and I didn't know this. I was just looking for some stories for the show and came across this. Oklahoma landlords filed 132 eviction cases every day in 2024. Wow. I don't even know. I mean, as a landlord and, as somebody's dealt with the court, I had no idea. With it, 44,230 evictions filed through the end of November, the state will likely end the year in a virtual tie for last year's total of 48,278. While evictions are frequent nationwide, with an estimated 3.6 million evictions filed each year, Oklahoma is among a group of states considered landlord-friendly. Landlord-friendly states have no rent control, cheap and simple eviction process, and low property taxes, which is interesting because we have so many people in California now the tenants have so many rights. It's almost impossible to get rid of a tenant who's paying their rent, doing their job, but you can't raise rent. There's certain laws that impact California differently. So this is interesting. In landlord-friendly states, tenants often find themselves on the losing side of policy. Most of Oklahoma's Residential Landlord-Tenant Act has not been changed to a meaningful benefit tenant since it was enacted in 1978. Oklahoma renters experience evictions at higher rates than most Americans. And it's not because they're poorer or worse tenants or because housing costs are higher, but because our laws have been structured to make evictions cheap and fast. She said those policy choices have created environments in which a few landlords lean on evicting filings as a low-cost rent fee collection tool. Here are 5 things to know about Oklahoma for their updated policies on tenant laws. Oklahoma evictions are the quickest in the nation. Oklahoma renters can be served a summons to appear for an eviction hearing set as soon as 3 days later. Only 2 states have shorter periods than 2 days. So you get your notice, you have to appear. It's almost automatic. That's okay. The extremely short notice on a scheduled eviction hearing often results in tenants missing their court date because they can't cover a work shift. According to Shelter Water in 2023, 73% of the cases resulting in eviction were due to tenant not being present at court. That's interesting. I can see that being a problem as a parent and a landlord and a business owner. There's things that you can't get to, and that is kind of surprising. Oklahoma tenants can find themselves forced out by sheriffs as soon as 5 days after the eviction was filed in court. That is lightning fast. And again, compare that to California, where you have just these laws to delay, to do this, to do that. It's night and day. Senator Shirley Kirk out of Oklahoma City proposed legislation to lengthen the time between filing an eviction lawsuit and a hearing date to allow tenants more time to seek legal counsel, make arrangements to attend court. The legislation died in committee. We know for a lot of people, having a few extra days to be able to come up with rent when something has gone sideways, their lives can make all the difference. She hopes Kurt will run the bill, SB 1575, again in 2025. The other interesting thing about it is, and this is more of just my experience, is I have a certain property type that I look for that will bring in a certain type of person. And that to me, if you have a nice house in a nice neighborhood, you're going to have a nice tenant that's going to take care of your stuff. The cost to turn out a tenant is amazing. You have to repaint, recarpet, redo everything. And so I find it easier to deal with a tenant to come to terms with some things rather than fork it out trying to find a new guy. And certainly if somebody's giving you a hard time, someone's not paying their bills, someone's loud, obnoxious, doing things that really don't fit with what you're doing, you don't want to be a landlord like that. You want to be somebody that doesn't get a lot of phone calls, that doesn't, there's a check every month. There's things that just flow easier. And a lot of that has to do with what type of property you have. That's just a personal note. Going back to this, Dilk said several years ago, a large Tulsa landlord made a policy shift to stop filing evictions on the 6th of the month, the day that rent was officially late, and instead filed it on the 11th. That small change resulted in 50% fewer evictions at that complex. Now, again, complex tells me that's an apartment complex, so they're used to a lot of turnover. But that's interesting. If you work with your tenants, because maybe there's something that just came up, something happened, something needs to just, because these landlords don't want to evict people that fast, or they don't want that kind of turnover. That costs them money. But they also don't want deadbeats, people causing problems, doing things that are going to, make their business model change so much. The quick time frame in Oklahoma evictions feeds the practice of serial evictions used by some corporate landlords to make more profit. Second, corporate landlords file most Oklahoma evictions. Mom and pop landlords file few evictions. Okay, right. Corporate management companies are behind a major majority of cases, and often those evictions are filed to not get rid of a tenant, but to collect rent and eviction filing fees, which can be twice the cost to file an eviction case. Wow, that's crazy. According to data from Open Justice Oklahoma, between 2018 and 2022, 54% of all eviction cases filed in Tulsa County were filed by the same 50 landlords. So there's obviously something going on here that they have another angle to the whole housing tenant issue. I can see that being a problem. Third, evictions cost tenants more than their homes. Corporate apartment complexes have begun charging lease break fees when tenants end their leases early. The practice touted as protection for tenants who need to move out before the end of a lease, but landlords charge lease break fees to tenants who are evicted, as well as simply charging those to end up ending a lease early. That is a consumer protection problem. So I wonder if they have a lot of judgments and unlawful detainer cases that they go after these people down the road and just kind of use that as another, I've collected on judgments. I've had judgments that I've had to go get. And so I wonder if that's just another part of that piece of that puzzle. Oklahoma landlords can retaliate against tenants. Sometimes when tenants complain about problems that makes their units uninhabitable, landlords use eviction or the threat of eviction as retaliation. See, that's different in California. If there's a problem with your house in California, if you have a mold issue, or if you have water issues, or if you have issues that come up, the landlord's responsible for dealing with that within a certain amount of time. And then they can't raise rent on you for, I think it's 6 months, as a protection or a retaliation against that issue, which I think is fair. I know that in some of our properties, I've spent thousands of dollars to replace something, but I don't want to. I have fixed income tenants, so I have to, and I see it entirely differently because these people are never going to leave. That's, I don't want to change out all this stuff. I want them to be there until they, and then fifth, Oklahoma tenants are not guaranteed court-appointed lawyers. Landlords generally have lawyers representing them in eviction cases, but in places without right to counsel laws, most tenants represent themselves. That's another interesting piece of that, because lawyers are savvy and homeowners are not, or tenants are not. They are very emotional. They're very, there's something that's not right that's going on, and they can't afford an attorney. So I understand, how that's it's a problem for the tenants and how they can be, outnumbered in that whole thing. The report estimates that the right to counsel pilot, for which LASO paid out $860,000, yielded a return of investment of 7.37 for every dollar invested. Legal aid services estimated the cost to implement right to counsel statewide at a $3 million annual budget or cost. So yeah, it's very interesting. I know some friends of mine have sold their California real estate to move to more, I guess, landlord friendly states. I know Florida's another big one, and I have friends that are in Oklahoma as well. So it's an interesting one. Hey, again, we're looking for your story. 800-224-6962. $500 every month. Give us a call. We'll play your message. Subscribers vote. Winner. We delete your information, and I'm not looking for, listing information. I'm not looking for any of that stuff. I want to hear your story. There's good ones. I've got all kinds of things that, over the years of being in the business, you come across stuff that it's just, and I don't want grim reaper stuff. I've dealt with that, people who, excuse me, people who have done things to themselves or bad things. I mean, it's, the funny stuff, please, not like, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Hey, leave your comments below and we'll talk later.
Thank you for watching Real Estate Soup with Mike Osterman.